Hey hi everyone, this is Mukesh Advani from learn-innovation.com. In this video, we are going to talk about what is final keyword in Java. So in the recent videos, we discussed about so many keywords and every keywords play a very different role in Java programming language. So we discussed about this keyword, super keyword, and we are going to talk about few more keywords in detail. So if you are completely new to this channel, I would recommend you to go and watch my previous video where we discussed about so many keywords. So let's start with final keyword in Java. So we'll talk about what exactly is final keyword, what is final variable, what is final method, and what is final class. Now final keywords plays a very important role because you will find couple of predefined classes methods. They are already final. So once you understand how this final keywords work, then you can relate with them easily. Okay. So what exactly is final keyword? So final keyword is one of the reserved keyword in Java. So the main intention of this keyword is to restrict the user. Okay, so you can apply this keyword for multiple entities. So you can apply this for variables, you can apply this for methods, and you can apply with the classes. So I will explain you for each scenario. Just give me a couple of minutes and I will clear all your doubts. So let's start with the first one, with final variable. So when you apply final keyword with a variable, we'll call this a final variable. And once you make that variable is final, you cannot change the values. Okay, so there's one interesting point here, that by default all the variables that you define in interface will be static and the final. So we'll come back to this point again once you're done with all the scenario. I will create a small interface and I will quickly show you this part as well. The only point you need to keep in mind for the final variables is that once you provide some value, you cannot change that variable if it is final. Okay, so let me give you one example. So let's take a very normal example. When you see this first statement, this is without any final. So when you say public int marks equal to 90, let's say, you can change its value. You can make it 90, you can make it 100, you can give any other value. But when you see the next statement, which is public final int marks, so if I give this keyword, I cannot change its value once it is initialized. Now there's one all Java recommend that if you're using final variables, always use the capital letters so that we can understand easily that this is the final variable. And you can also call this as a constant variables, because constant variables we cannot change its values. So Java recommends that you should keep all the final variables as a capital letters. So we will consider this as a constant variable. But again, if you go with a small letter, that's fine. So let me show you each and every scenario with the help of a small program so that you can easily relate. So I'm going to create a separate package, and this package name I will give final variable demo. Let me create a class called final variable demo. I will select publish static void main, click on finish. So let's take one variable. Let me create first a small method, public void, let's say show. So if I create one variable here, let's say public, or let's say int marks equal to 90, and if I call this, or if I use this, I can call this as insys out, and I will print this. So if I want to call this method, I will create object of this class, which is obj1 equal to new class name followed by parenthesis semicolon, and with the help of this dot operator I'm going to call this method. So this is what we have seen in the past, how to create object, how to call the method. So now if I try to change its value to 95, okay, you can see I can change it easily. Earlier it was 90, this time I have given a different value, so you will get a latest value called 95. But this is not the case with final variables. If I make this variable as final marks, if I make it let's say 80, and if I try to make it again final marks equal to 90, you can see it will not allow. So final local variable, okay, this cannot be assigned, it must be blank and not using a compound assignment. So what does it mean? Okay, I will come back to this. It must be blank. This will be done with the help of constructor. This will come to this point again. But Java says once it is initialized, you cannot change its value. So this is what about the final variable. Now Java recommends you should keep this as a capital letter. So I will say final underscore marks. This is what Java recommends, and let's follow the same. Once it is initialized, you cannot change, but when you go with the normal variables, you can change its value. Now there's another thing called blank final variable. Now this is again sometimes a tricky question. What do you mean by blank final variable? So it's whenever you don't initialize the final variable at the time of declaration, it is called blank final variable. So when you create blank final variables, you can only initialize them in constructor. Okay, so you can see this example, right? I have created public final customer ID and I have not initialized. Okay, so when you don't initialize, it will be called as final variable or blank final variable. So you cannot give its values without a constructor. So let's do this as well. For example, or let me create another example. So I'm going to just remove everything. So here, let's say I'm creating one variable called final string. Let's take final integer, or let's consider as a string. That's fine. And I will give this as PAN card details. So you can see the moment I say PAN card, let's say complete capital letters. So it is giving me error. Why it is giving me error? Because you cannot, keep a final variable without any initialized value. You cannot keep it blank. But if you create constructor of this particular class, you can initialize this value with the help of constructor. For example, if I create constructor of this class, so if you're completely new to constructor, guys, I have created a video on constructor and I have uploaded as well. So what is constructor, what is constructor overloading? That is a very important topic and very interesting as well. So we are going to use the same. In short, when you use the method, constructor is a special method which has the same name as class name. In our case, it is final variable demo2. So this is my constructor. So when I initialize its value, let's say I'm going to take one parameter, and whatever value I will get when I will initialize this variable to this final variable, it will not throw any error. In many cases you will get this question, guys, in interviews as well when you give online exams. So you can only initialize blank final values with the help of constructor. If you remove this constructor, it will start throwing error. Okay, so if you don't give at the time of if you have declared only, then next initialization you can do with the help of constructor. So this constructor I will call, and as you know that we don't have to call the constructor, it will be called automatically as soon as we create object. So when I create object, okay, you can see I have a constructor, so it is asking me provide me a string string. So I'm providing some PAN card details which will be stored here, which will be assigned to this final variable, and then I can use it. So let's say in the show method I will say PAN card details are, and I will be using the same PAN card. Okay, so when you put mouse over, can you see the small f symbol? F means it's a final variable. Now you cannot change its value. So if you try to do the, change the values, you cannot change. So that is again very interesting point called blank final variable. You cannot do without any constructor. You need a parameter is constructor, then only you can initialize its value. Now second part, what is final method? When you apply a final keyword with a method, it's called the final method. And good thing about this is you cannot override the final methods. So If you're complete new to method overriding, again, method overriding is a must feature that you should know about Java. For that also we have a dedicated video. So there's one other point that you need to notice here, that we can inherit the final method but we cannot override. Sometimes people get confused with this. Okay, so final methods cannot be override but we can inherit them. So guys, whenever you have any questions or any clarification you need related to Java, I would highly recommend that you should go with their documentation. They're very good documentation they have maintained, and they're in depth. Okay, so I have given you this link. The moment you click on this link, you will be redirected here, and they have mentioned everything. So right now we are discussing under a specific section, and I'm talking about this section called writing final classes and method. So I will give you this links in the description, but whenever you have any queries related to Java, you can go back here and you can start. You can learn all the programming concept basic about the objects, annotation, interfaces. Right now we are dealing into this one. Very nicely maintained documentation. Highly recommend it. Okay, so let's talk about this final method. So now the question come in mind, why do we need final method? Okay, so before talking about this, let's see what exactly is final method. Then we'll come to this point, then why we need it. First of all, you should know what is this. Then we can create a question. Then what is the need of it? For that, again, I will create. Yeah, I can continue in the same package. So I will say final method demo, and again I will take this as public static void main. As we know, in order to use a final method, I need one parent class, because the main point of final method is that we cannot override the methods, right, if it is final. For that, I will create one, let's say a parent class. This parent class, let's say, have one method called name. So I will say my name is Mukesh, and I don't want anybody to change its behavior. It should be always my name is Mukesh. So if I make this method as final, and let's keep one method as address, or let's say my city is Bangalore. So you can see one method is final, one method is not final. So if I try to use inheritance, if I extend this class which is called parent class, which is this, now let me try to give the same method in child class. Now you can see the difference, guys. Let me create one more method, public void, and I will say this is my phone number, and let's say that my number is some random number. So now we have three methods. One method is only for this child class method. These two methods are coming from parent class. Now this is not a final method, so you can easily override this, and I can say my city is, let's say, Hyderabad. But since this is a final method, you cannot change my name. So now you can understand, whenever any method is final, you cannot override in the child class or in the subsequent classes. So that is what the final method is all about. If it is not final, it's a normal method, you can see I can override it. So if I create object of this class, okay, let's say obj1 equal to new final method demo. So if I say obj1 dot name, it will be always Mukesh. But if you see this part, I will give address and number. It's a phone actually. So you can see the moment I run this code, it will say my name is Mukesh. City is Hyderabad because we have done the overriding. And phone number is again a child class method, so this is same. Now you got the clear difference. So now the question comes in the mind, when to use final method. So I hope you are able to relate it, that whenever you don't want to change any method's behavior in the child classes, you can make these methods its final methods. And the best example is object class. Okay, the moment you open object class, which is predefined class in Java, it has so many methods which is declared as final methods. It means you cannot override them. So if I show you, let's say obj object obj1 equal to new object. I'm creating object of an object class. But let's say if I want to show you the documentation, let me make it 2. The moment I open object class, okay, so first of all, you will see they have a couple of final methods. These are not final. Just a second. You can see this, right? Final. This is also final. This is also final. This is also final. So Java has so many final methods. Okay, and final methods we cannot override them. And now very interesting, final class. So just like a normal scenario, whenever you make or whenever you give any classes with a final keyword, that will be called as a final class. And if you make this class as a final class, no other class can extend this. I love this feature of Java. Okay, and you will see Java has so many predefined classes which are final classes. Now if you talk about the real-time scenarios, whatever wrapper classes we have in Java, right? Like all the wrapper classes of integer, boolean, float, double character, each and every wrapper class in Java is a final class. And even a string class that we use in our day-to-day life is a final class. So now if you see the last point called like when you want to make classes immutable, you can make that class as a final class. Okay, it means nobody can change its behavior. Okay, so let me show you this as well. For this I will create, okay, let me save this. Let me create a fresh class, and this class I will give, let's say, employee, or let's say CEO. I'm just giving some random class name, and this class has one method called, let's say, name for the time being. Again I will say my name is Mukesh, and this time if I make this class as final, okay, but let's make it a normal class first, and let me create a new class called employee. Public static void main. Now if I try to extend this class, which is CEO, so I will say extends and I will say CEO. I can extend it easily because it's a normal class. But the moment I make this class as final class, okay, I just need to add final keyword before writing class. This complete class will become final class. You cannot extend it, and you can see you will start getting error. The type employee cannot be subclass the final class CEO. So the quick fix is that suggesting that you need to remove the final modifier from the CEO class. Okay. So just keep this point in mind. If class is final, you cannot extend it. If method is final, you cannot override it. But if if a variable is final, you cannot change its value. As simple as that. Now let me show you these wrapper classes. Okay. So is this clear? I guess now. So I'm not going to extend it. Otherwise, it will keep on throwing error. But I hope you got the point. So if I create a separate class, demo1, so let me take example of any wrapper class. Okay, so if I say integer, it's a wrapper class in Java. If I try to open the source code of this class, you can see this is a final class which is extending a number class which is implementing one comparable interface. So this final class have all the final variables which we discussed just now, and if you see this, they are also giving a proper they're following the recommendations that all are in capital letters, and they also have a couple of final methods. So it means you cannot extend this integer class and you cannot change its behavior. In the same way, if I show you the string class, just try to open the string and you can see it's a string class. So you cannot extend this, and as you know, string class is immutable. So the last point which you see here, if you want to make a immutable class, you can create a final class. Now this is again interview question. Can we make our own immutable classes? So answer is yes, but you have to follow certain rules if you want to create your own class as an immutable class. So the first point I will say, you need to make this class as a final class, and we have seen you need to create some blank final variables. You need to create a constructor which will set the value which we already seen, and finally we also need a method which will access that particular data members. Now this is little advanced topic, guys, so if you are not able to follow this part, it's fine, but this is very easy if you follow this video from the scratch. So let me show you, let me create my own class. I will make this class as an immutable class. Okay, so let's do one thing, close everything, and let's create one class. Okay, let me remove this, and maybe I can rename this class. Let me give this name as YouTube. Let's consider I want to make YouTube class as an immutable class. So first thing, I have to make this class as a final. Second thing, I need some final variables. So let's say I am creating one final variable called, let's say, creator name, or let's keep this as how many creators we have. So I'm going to create one constructor, public YouTube. This is a constructor. So this constructor is going to initialize its value actually. So I will be taking one parameter which is nothing but numbers. That numbers I will initialize here. I guess I will say creator equal to numbers. So whatever numbers I will get from the constructor, I will be assigning into this final variable. So final class is done, constructor is done, we have a blank final variable. Now I just need a method which will give me value of this variable. Okay, so if I create public void show me creator count, which is nothing but the numbers that we are highlighting, I will say total numbers are, I will just say creators. So this is the immutable class. You cannot change its behavior. You cannot extend this class. If you want to use it, just create object of this class and start using it. So now if I create another class, let's say my YouTube, I'm just creating another class. This has public static void main because this is what the entry point. That is just a separate class in a separate package, let's assume. So if I want to call them, I will say YouTube y equal to new YouTube. Okay, and I can provide this. Now if I say sysout y dot show me creator count, okay, it should give me. Okay, so there's another thing, guys, just a second. We don't need it. I will directly say, because we are already getting the values from here, right? So just call this and you can see we got the number, right? And once this value is final, I cannot change it. So if I want to change the value, let's say I want to change y dot creator equal to 10. I cannot, because this is a final variable which I cannot change. So cool, this is how you can create your own immutable class, or I will say final class, and you can continue using it. So that's all I have. So just to make it little quick, final variables cannot change the value, final methods cannot override final class, we cannot inherit. Okay, so we have object class which already have so many final methods. We already have final classes, which is all the wrapper classes and string class. Last part, can we make our own classes immutable? Yes, you just need to follow 4 rules. Class should be final, data member should be final, constructor which will set the value of the final variables, and finally you need a method which will access the data members. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video. If yes, then share with your friends, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next video. Have a nice day. Bye bye.